The hardware side for my dynamic label control panel is done, I think. Software side is still getting some work done. But if you start it up, you can see that all the buttons light up and each individual control has a label. Each label is a 96 by 64 optical LED display. There's 12, one for each of the buttons. Each controller has a LED ring around it that lights up if the controller is in use. The trackball lights up, but needs a better light, and the spinner does as well. Start and stop button. Start buttons don't have labels, just have an icon on them. The labels change based on the game. This is for Dungeons and Dragons, Tower of Doom, I think. And then the controls will light up depending on which ones are actually in use. So this one has the joysticks rings lit up, but not the spinner and the trackball. Each display is a full color display, so the labels are actually different colors. They just don't come up very good on the video. Like that select is actually green, but it's coming out as white. But you can keep changing games, and it'll change the layout. This one is Stargate, which has bonkers controls, so that's reverse, hyperspace, and then over here on player 2 I have the Inviso, Smart Bomb, Thrust, and Fire. Only the left controller is lit up, and you only use the up and down on it, if I remember correctly. Right controller is not used, so it's not lit up. Since they're actual just displays, you can change the font depending on the game. So like this is Tempest, so it's got a more rounded font because that's just a default font. This one is Asteroids Deluxe, and so it has a font that I tried to find that matches kind of what was on the control panel. Though it's hard to actually get the camera to focus right on these two, show it off right. Here's that one's not focusing right. This is Street Fighter 2, which has actually uses all 12 buttons, 6 per player. And then there's Defender. Let's see, Metal Slug, Double Dragon. This is just a test displays. Shows player 1 button, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, blah blah blah. Just used to make sure that all the screens are actually working and laid out correctly in the software. But seems to be working pretty well. Just need to install it in the cabinet. Finish writing the software, making all the configurations for each game, and it should be good to go. This is the very scary bottom of the board, showing the gigantic mess of wiring to make all this work. The LEDs are driven by a pair of pack drives, each controlling one player, and then the trackball and the spinner are tied off of one of them, can't remember which. In the middle here is a Raspberry Pi Zero with a proto board on top that splits out the GPIO pins out to drive all the SPI displays for each label. So there's 12 displays, so there's 12 bundles of cables coming out. SPI, this is a 7-pin SPI, so each display shares 6 common lines, and then gets a chip select for each one. So all these are just the same things run out to everywhere, and these over here, along here, are the chip selects for each individual display. The displays are these little things right here, and they're mounted inside the top of the control panel in these little recesses. and then they get the black acrylic on top, just a cutout for where the display is, and obviously the buttonholes, and then clear acrylic over that, so you don't have to worry about getting dust on display or touching it or anything else like that. The LEDs around the controls, the joysticks and the spinner, are these little LED rings. I think they're actually for like going around headlights and stuff like that on the cars. They're 12 volts, light up red. But when you put them under the red acrylic, they give a nice glowing effect around the controls. Let's see. And you can see here where the wires come through for each display. And then displays are, right now the control panel's upside down, obviously. And then, depending on if it's on the bottom of the control panel or top, the display is either installed this way or this way, and then the software supports flipping the screen over. It also can do if you just want to flip it sideways and stuff like that. So that's the mess of hardware. Could also, instead of using the Pi Zero, you could also use an SPI adapter card, like an FT232H. But I was having trouble with it, I had trouble with it controlling all the displays off that, and the Pi Zero ended up being a lot easier to manage. And then the software is just using a REST server to take requests for what game to actually display. The game, and then the mappings of what controls go to which buttons. So it'll actually read the MAME configuration that you have your buttons mapped to. So if you say move the controls for Stargate onto Players 2's button instead of Player 1, it'll figure that out and put the labels on the right place.